Hey there, this is Katherine Cartwright. Hope you're doing well. I am sharing, I stopped by my Michael's. I've been there a couple of times this summer and picked up a few things that I was interested in. I needed some more red line tape and I was happy to see this in store. So I needed a little roll of this. So I got some of this to try out. I don't know if I've ever had their brand. I used to get it at various different places, but I don't know if I ever got it from there. So I'm going to try that out. And then I also got some stamp chamois. I have some similar things like this from other companies that I've picked up, but they do wear out. And I've got a couple of them that are in pretty bad shape. So since I was there and I saw them, I decided to pick them up. So I'll give them a try out and see. I also got a new set of tweezers. I've been in multiple videos trying to accomplish using the tweezers without a lot of success, but I saw these. I was really interested in the straight line ones. The ones I kind of have some like that with the curve, but I wanted to try those pointed ones. Those were kind of new to me. I always like things that give an extension to my hand, basically. I've talked about that with the bone folder, having kind of extend your hand. So I'm curious about those. So I'll try those out. And then I think I've seen that they had some inks in store, but they caught my attention this day. And I wanted to try this kind of tealish green collection. I've got a couple of holes in my what I would call color palette of stamp pads, and I thought maybe this would help me fill some. They had some other colors too. I was kind of interested. They had kind of a berry collection. I don't really have a color palette of that, more warm. I used to have a lot of those when I had some I think they were Stampin' Up or something, but they're long gone. And so I'm looking to replace a few things. So I'm going to try these out. And this is what this video is mostly going to be about, are the inks. So if you're curious about them, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to do some stuff with them. Okay. And again, the inkers, re-inkers, what really kind of sold me on it are the re-inkers, that if these dry out or get drier or need some ink, I can re-ink them myself, which is attractive because I had another brand a couple years back and I received them and they were really dry from the get-go, and I really didn't want to pay a lot for the re-inkers, and I felt that the price of these were pretty reasonable. Okay, so on these I'm kind of pressing. I was curious how juicy they were, and I really start pressing a little too hard. There is ink in there, I can see it, but I'm curious how it will stamp. So I'm just kind of pressing this down, I should say, onto paper to see how. Now this one seems fairly dry. I think that was maybe jade. I'll have to look at the top of it, but that one could use some more ink, although there is some in there because you can see once I really gave it a good press, which I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but I just wanted to show you kind of what it looked like right out of the package. Okay, so I've got a little stamp here. I've got this little butterfly stamp. I think this is from Diamond Press, that was part of something months ago, and it has literally been sitting in one little spot, and I use it for various little things. I don't know why I keep it there. I should put it back with the stamp set, but that's how I roll sometimes. All right, so I'm just kind of stamping these out, and I'm happy with the performance. I mean, that was just one stamp, and it went right on there. I don't see any beading up like sometimes I get on stamps, and I'm just going to cut this apart because it looks kind of yucky right there, just having all that in front of you. But so I want to focus more on using the stamp, and I'm going to move to the next color. So it's mint, seafoam, and jade. I don't know if they had an actual name on there. I think they just listed the colors. Okay, so I'm just kind of looking at the package and seeing what I think is going to be light to dark. And that would be kind of fun too, is I don't really have any sets of layering inks that are maybe 3 shades or 3 kind of family colors that I could do to layer together. So that's another reason why I thought about these, because they're in packs of 3, that I could do some flowers or something like that with some of the layering stamps or with layering stencils. So I'm just curious to give them a try. All right. And then this color is really pretty. I think I probably need to put a tiny bit of ink on the jade, but for this application, it looks pretty good. All right. And you can see it's a little bit of a different shade. And I've got my little stamp chamois here, and I'm going to try that out. All right. So I'm going to do kind of some techniques. I wanted to ink blend with it and see how it would work. Now, these are not really for ink blending per se because they're dye inks. Dye inks are going to dye your paper, so they're different than something like distress ink that is more of a water reactive, although these are probably water-based, I'm assuming, which means they will react a little bit with water. They'll clean up with water, but not necessarily like a big reaction with water. That's not their primary objective. It's really to stamp an image and dye the paper with that image, okay? But I'm going to try anyway. So this paper is Bristol Smooth Cardstock, which I use all the time when I ink blend, and it looks pretty good right now. And I'm just going to keep the same little foam thing because I just pulled out a new one, and I'm just going to work my way down and ink blend these together. All right, so that first one was Seafoam. This one is Mint. And then that darker one is Jade, which really has a different tone on there. And I'm just checking that the lid is on there right. Looks good. And then I'm going to come in with this last color, which definitely has a different tone, a little bit to it. It's got a little more blue in it. But I don't really have a color per se like that. So I'm kind of excited to have that one. So this is how it performed, and I think it looks really good. So I'm very happy with that. And then I've got to clean off my grip mat here because it is, you can see it's very dirty, and it's stained, but it's really dirty too. Oops, sorry to show that. That's so gross. I'm sorry. I should have cut that out. But it's working. It's getting it clean, and now we are back in business, okay, to do some more ink projects. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to do some straight up ink blending here. And now I pulled out some extra foams because I kind of was just rolling along in this video thinking of what I would want to see with these inks. And so I decided just to do a panel of ink blending. And it spreads pretty well. I think that a couple of things. I like the color for sure, but I think I needed my foam. It got easier, I think, as the foam got more filled with ink. I think because it's, like I said, it's a dye ink. And so it's not a traditional kind of what I would call, a distress ink that is made for ink blending. Although I think you can totally do that with this one. But it's just a little bit different. So I think it got easier when I had more ink in my dauber, so to speak. And I find that sometimes with my distress inks too, that the kind of more full of ink they are, the better they work because they just really glide over that paper. So anyway, I'm talking about a lot of stuff and giving you a lot of information, but just my thought process of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So the Bristol cardstock is smooth, the texture, and it allows the ink to kind of sit up a little bit before it really soaks in there. However, this is a dye ink, and it's going to go in there pretty quickly. You're not going to get probably as much play and movement on it because it is a dye ink. All right. But it's looking pretty good. I mean, I think that's a fairly decent ink blend. I've used some other dye inks that, I have maybe not had quite as much success with. But I think this ink pad is fairly juicy, which is helping my ability to ink blend together. So I'm just going to come back with that first color with Seafoam and blend that in a little bit. And then I'm going to move on to Jade, all right, which is going to be that darker one, which is very, very pretty, but has definitely a lot more blue in it. And I'm just going to finish off this one. And this one already had kind of a good bit of ink in it. So like I said, I feel like it is coming onto the paper a little bit easier. Okay, so let me finish blending this together, and then we'll see what we think about that. But I'm pretty happy with that. I could probably spend a little bit more time and really smooth it out, but honestly, I'm either going to use this as a background or die cut it. This would be a fun one to die cut some words out. and use them for that, or maybe some balloons or something like that would be fun. A lot of fun things you could do with that. And so I'm happy with that. That works for me. All right. So I'm just cleaning up a little bit since I went off of the paper to do that ink blending. All right. Now I want to move on to some watercolor cardstock. Again, I was just kind of trying some things out. I didn't really have a plan of how I wanted this to go. So I'm just kind of pulling some stuff out and playing with it. Sometimes that's the best way for me to decide if I like something or not. It's just to take the time to play with it. All right, so I've got this watercolor cardstock. I had to find a pen that had some water in it. And I wish I should have used a brush too, probably, but I just stuck with the kind of ink pen. All right, so I've got a piece of an acetate folder or whatever that you store your stamps in, a stamp pocket. And I am going to just kind of smush the ink a little bit onto that palette, making my own little palette here, and I'm going to ink blend this on. So I'm not getting a ton of movement here using this as a watercolor. I could use it for sure in this application, but I'm going to also try in a second with the reinkers. Sorry, I had to think of the word. And again, I'm using a very fine brush too, which probably is not helping, but I love the colors, and I actually like how they do as I'm spreading them. The colors are very, very pretty. And so that part I'm very happy with. So I'm just adding some more water here, but not a lot of movement, because again, this is really dyeing my paper. But if you add some more ink, you can get a little more color in there. So it's kind of like a, sea glass. I kind of see like what you'd see in the ocean and stuff. I really love the colors. That I am very, very happy with. All right, so I'm just going to wipe that off, clean that up a little bit, and then I'll just let that dry. And I could cut that down and use that for something. Background, accent, use some, dyes to cut a word or something like that. So I decided I should pull out my reinkers here. And I wanted to try kind of the same technique using some more watercolor paper. And first off, I squeezed out way too much ink. I mean, maybe 1 dot, and I think I did 2 on each, which is way too much. This is very concentrated. I realized very quickly that I did not need that much ink. And I'm just trying to keep the colors straight here out of the reinkers from lightest. Actually, I was supposed to do lightest to darkest, but it looks like the lightest is in the middle. Okay. So I've got my trusty little water pen here. Again, I'm going to spray this with my water bottle and hopefully kind of loosen up some of that color and have a little more, thin that out a little bit. I'm going to spray my cardstock as well and get that a little bit damp. And then I'm going to try to apply some of this. So you can see the color saturation is really strong. I mean, compared to what little bit I had gotten off the pad. So this would be a really fun way to do some watercoloring. This looks way better, and I love the color for sure. And so, and it's spreading really evenly. You can see how it kind of stops and starts on that right side because I didn't have enough of the color, and this looks really good. And then this got really, really dark, a little darker probably than I wanted. But again, I didn't add any water to that. But you can see that beautiful when you add a little bit of water, how light that gets. So you can have a lot of fun, and you can get a lot of colors out of its shades because as you add more water, it's going to thin out. So another kind of way to add some watercolor to your palette if you're interested. And so again, I had so much reinker left over, and I was not going to waste it. So I decided to wet my paper a little bit, and then I'm just going to try and soak up some of the color here, and I still have plenty left. So I'm just kind of making a little background here. I'm going to take my brush and kind of try and tidy up a little bit of the parts that got a little super wet or that didn't get enough color. So I'm just going to kind of spread that out so I don't have this huge streak on the bottom, and then I'm going to go back and get a little bit more and clean that up and add in a little bit more blue. But that is really pretty, so I'll need to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to use my heat tool. Usually when I do like a watercolor panel, I will let it dry naturally. I just feel like it looks a little better, but in the interest of time, I had to add a little bit of heat to dry this out. Okay. And this one is all really pretty. I kind of used up that lighter green in the middle on that one, but very, very fun. Okay, so I'll come back to those in a minute. Now I wanted to do some more stamping. I know I stamped that butterfly, but I was looking for something that was a little more solid, and just to see how it performs. Because sometimes when you have a solid stamp, the ink can work a little bit differently in terms of coverage. And so I am going to stamp this out, and then we'll see how it does. Okay? Okay, so that is the first stamp out. And the lightest color, did really well. The second color was a little lighter, and then the jade, I think I did need to, as I was kind of reviewing this at the end, I was like, I think I needed to probably add a little bit of ink to it. So I will definitely add a drop or so and get that just a little bit more moist, although it does end up stamping pretty well. But I did have to go a couple of times to get good coverage. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with this. Solid images can be very tricky. And again, for the price point, I think that's a pretty good stamped image. So I'm happy with that as well. So I will die cut those and use those on the card, but I'm really loving the colors. These are just some colors that I didn't really have. So I wanted to do, I'm going to do jade again. I wiped that stamp down. I think that stamp was brand new, but I wanted to see, yeah, you can see at the bottom, it still just needs a little more ink here. So I'm definitely going to ink that one up. All right. But overall, pretty good results. Okay. All right. And then I think I have a piece of glitter in there too. You can see that little white spot there. I had some glitter kind of floating around my table as well. So, all right. So I am going to do one more thing. I know this video is very long, so you're getting to hear me just kind of carry on today. But, I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to share everything that I made. I did do something off camera that I wanted to mention when I'm going to show you these panels in a minute. One of them I sprayed water on, that one of the watercolor panels that I just kind of dipped into the extra re-inker ink. So you'll see that it did resist a little bit of the color. I was able to pull some of the color off, which I was hoping I would be able to do. I just failed to include that in the video. So I wanted to mention, if you like to do that, I love to watercolor something and then go back, put a little spritz of water on there, and pull the color off, and it just leaves a really cool effect. So I wanted to mention that if you're like, well, I don't remember seeing that on the video. Well, that's what happened. Okay. And I'm just taking a second here. This is how I swatch my colors. Is I have a die that cuts the tag, and then I just write on there and I stamp the colors. So, and I put them in they're on a little tag holder thing, wheel sort of circle, and so I can quickly reference the colors. But I've been really trying to do that with any new colors that I bring in, so I can have a quick reference for them, but that's how I do it. Okay? So that was the last step that I wanted to do there. Okay? And so this is them after they have dried. Pretty good coverage. Again, that jade pad needs a little bit of ink, I think, so I need to go back and, like I've said several times, and give it a drop of ink. And then here are those watercolor panels. There's that one that I just did straight with the re-inkers. This one I dipped into, and here's that panel I was referencing. I sprayed a little water on there and then took that color off. So I'm actually really happy that it did that. Here's the ink blending, the panel, as well as the stencil, which I'm super happy about. And you can see how differently they look on different paper. Coming from the watercolor looks completely different to me than on that Bristol cardstock. The water makes a difference. So that's just kind of fun thing. And then here are the butterflies that we started with initially. So overall, I haven't had them a long time, so I don't know how they'll hold up. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how they have performed. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. One, if you've ever tried these inks, and two, what you think about the colors. And so, or if you even knew that Michaels had some stamps ink pads like this. And I was showing you, this is a Distress cube holder, ink cube holder, and it holds the Michaels cubes beautifully. So I just wanted to show that if you had any, there's a built-in storage place if you already have one of these containers, although I think Michaels does sell them. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of these inks. Check back for more videos. Have a great day.